This week's episode is sponsored by Yabba, and we have a fantastic giveaway with the Pixel 9. So stick around to the end of the podcast to hear about that and to potentially win yourself a brand new phone. Abner, 2025, I think it's going to be a huge year for Google. There's going to be a lot of things happening that potentially change the way we think about certain products. How do you feel in terms of like excitement, products you want to see, all that kind of jazz?
So we have to talk about Gemini first. So it's going to be another heavy pace of Gemini announcements this year. Mm-hmm. That's basically the one absolute given we have. And I guess to start off tangibly, we're waiting for Gemini 2.0 to launch. I guess the things with these models is the models themselves, the capabilities we're waiting for, they're not, it's at this point, it's capabilities you're familiar with, maybe getting better, gets slightly improved. There's an incrementalness to this stuff. And the big thing, the most exciting things are how these underlying models are applied to new use cases. New products, new features, that kind of stuff. But in the short term, I think on the assistant front, on the phone front, we're waiting for the wide rollout of a new Gemini overlay on Android. Some people already have it. It's basically the current panel that you get gets compacted down to basically a small bar. And it's a bit more minimalist. It's there's the nice flashy glow as always. So that looks to be the first moment that Jet will be getting with Gemini, especially as it comes a year after the app launched, I believe in February last year.
I can't believe it's been a year since Gemini has been like this thing. I mean, I always find it strange with AI because it feels like we have these inflection points, all what they've effectively we're told are inflection points. Do you think that potentially Gemini is going to, I mean, we're both kind of in agreement that we want to see more integrations with Android, but do you think there's going to be a killer, some sort of, I mean, multimodality is that kind of thing, isn't it, right? We want that, like, being able to ask for things concurrently and then those things occurring. I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you a bit more of a broader question. Like, do you think we're going to see this year? I'm kind of skeptical.
So we'll jump on the Android thing in our next section, so to speak. But multimodality, it's the idea that you're, in addition to text, you're doing voice input, you're doing video input, image input. So the other thing we're waiting for is Gemini Live to get its Project Astra capabilities, or basically camera capabilities and video, where you're able to show a picture and have a discussion with it. Again, this is Astra. This is what Google showcased at I/O, and it gave a preview at the end of December. I think being able to point at something and ask a question, it's awkward. It's a bit more awkward on the phone, but I do think that's going to be.
Do you think it's going to be the testing ground? My interpretation, it's going to be the testing ground for potentially then those newer form factors.
It's just so much more convenient. Yeah, it is, absolutely. It's a new testing ground for form factors, but there's a convenience to it where you can just look at something and ask a question like a human. But the other interesting there is when you'll be able to share your screen, your phone screen with Gemini. So it's basically like a real-time circle to search, basically. You'll be able to send what's on your screen, everything, to Gemini Live and ask questions about it. So I think that's probably what people will be using more than the camera input. So that'll be interesting.
I can definitely see that being a huge thing because I'm going to go out on a whim and say that I think Circle to Search was one of those sleeper products last year.
Absolutely.
That I potentially didn't even think I would use it. And I use it every single day for text selection, searching for products, image, like the amount of time. I mean, it's great for reverse image search. And how this became, I mean, did it launch with the S24 series last year? I think it did.
Start of the year, January.
Yeah, so like we've had a full year potentially of Circle to Search in its entirety. I'm looking forward to seeing, like you say, what happens with with being able to share your screen and the context of your screen. Just whether or not everybody wants to do that for privacy reasons and how they approach that. I'm sure there will be some due diligence.
It's still definitely a mode. It's not something that's always active. So I guess that's the far end goal in the future. But yeah, I think talking with what's on your screen will be very interesting. And this while we're on the topic of Gemini Live, we're waiting for it to get extension support. Right now, Gemini Live is for general knowledge questions, for just talking with Google. It's not really for taking action with the main Gemini Live with the main Gemini experience. So this was something that was announced at the end of Made by Google in August. It has been promised, so I'm waiting for that to come. I'm not sure whether we'll get Astra or extension support in Gemini Live first, but those are the two biggest things I'm looking forward to in regards to Gemini in terms of things, actionable things that will really improve the experience.
I definitely think extension support is a must. I think personally I would like to see that first because I think a lot of people have been disappointed a little bit with the way that Google Assistant and Gemini are almost concurrently there, and I think having that extension support is going to be huge. But yeah, I cannot probably stress enough that Gemini has surprised me a lot this last 12 months. I'm also interested to see what happens with just Gemini across every single product category, like Android TV.
Yeah.
Obviously, the integration with Nest hardware, how we eventually see that potentially at the core of Android. But it looks like if you're not an AI person, and I don't know where I stand in a lot of it, to be honest with you. I'm kind of on the fence. Some things are cool, some things are not cool. But if you don't care about AI, I think, unfortunately, you're going to be bombarded with Gemini this year, period, from Google. It's probably their flagship product, period, at the moment, right? So yeah, it's going to be an interesting 12 months for Gemini, and maybe, I'm going to throw it out there. Do you think we'll see Gemini 3.0 by the end of the year? I know that's
by the end of the year. I think we will see it. That's the usual preview for setting up 2026. But yeah, to what you're saying, Gemini and the platforms, it's been announced to officially come on Nest speakers, Nest displays, presumably. We just saw it on. We saw Google Assistant powered by Gemini. For Android
Terrible name.
Google we have to discuss that one day. But yeah, that's coming. We've seen it reports on Wear OS coming. I'm really hoping for the headphones experience, the Pixel Buds experience, to get much better in terms of, basically, it's... I don't know. I want to be able to do more with voice only when talking to my buds, and that's probably involves extension support. That it probably involves Gemini. Again, extension support in Gemini Live. I think that goes a long way. But yeah, that's in terms of it will come to all of Google's major form factors this year, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's basically a guarantee.
And we touched on it briefly. Let's get one of those obvious ones out of the way. We definitely are going to see some Android in this next couple of weeks, these next couple of months. Android 16 is obviously going to be a core. It's one of those core releases for Google, period. And we want to see what happens with Gemini with that. But at this point in time, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen there, but we know for certain the timeline, right? We're still pretty concrete on that.
If we look at the competition, Siri will be able to control apps. Will be able to control specific aspects of apps. Navigating the UI with Siri. That's coming up. I think March or April of this year. So I do think we need a competitor to that in Gemini, specifically, basically the dream of the next generation assistant announced with the Pixel 4, being able to control your apps with your voice. So far, app control today has been basically you're using Gemini extensions. You're not really interacting with the UI. Google has made hooks in the backend to let you send specific commands. It's not natural language. It's not being able to freely control the UI with your voice. I hope we start to see that with Android 16. Would you use it? How do you imagine using your phone with your voice?
I'm wondering as well, though. Obviously, we have a looming product launch coming up in the next couple of weeks. I wonder if it will be a little bit like, obviously, Samsung are the biggest. I mean, they're the biggest player on Android, period. And obviously, Google has had closer ties with Samsung over the past few years. And I'm thinking in my mind now with Circle to Search that happened in January last year, launched on the S24 Ultra first. Do we potentially see some of this more kind of natural language controls? Is Gemini going to be a more core component within the S25? Do we potentially see that as a testing ground ahead of that? But then again, if that's based on Android 15, probably not.
No, I don't think. I think this needs OS level hooks. We need developers to update the app. So I think from what we've seen leaked so far, this is the app control. The extent of the app control stuff is Gemini extensions for Samsung apps. That's where I think it's heading. I think anything deeper will require to basically app developers to start rethinking to more integration, that kind of stuff. I think there has to be some. That's definitely an Android 16 thing. Setting the OS for the future of AI. So I think it all comes down to 16. I think if it does, it'll be a multi-year project. I think this is a long time scale. But for Android 16, I think the going theory, the going hope anyways, is that we have more UI changes after a few years of stagnancy.
Yeah. No, we've talked about it at length here. And obviously, it's our bread and butter talking about Android, but I'm excited to see what things change. I know that obviously Gemini is its own thing, but even just the slight changes to Gemini, kind of streamlining it, just streamlining some portions of Android 16 would be really nice. Definitely some more customization and things like that, but we don't really have long to wait, I guess. We could potentially... Do you think we'll see a smaller upgrade this time around? And then, I don't know, is it going to be 16.1 later on in the year, but have more kind of the AI component they're putting? I don't know. What do you genuinely think? So I really don't think that we're going to see huge AI changes right now in this first beta that comes in the next couple of weeks, potentially.
For the beta, like the very first beta of Android 16, I don't think we'll see AI stuff. I agree there. I think we see the groundworks of AI stuff if Google starts announcing like developer APIs for app devs to take advantage of. But I don't think I really doubt any of that will be active. I doubt any of Google's apps will be hooked up for any of this AI control, or if it is even AI voice-based control of apps. So I think in that regards, it'll be a bit more UI focused. Maybe hopefully we'll start seeing other non-AI tentpole features in 16. But I'd be really, I know many people would be happy if we start seeing these UI changes, be it the redesigned quick settings or lock screen stuff, or I don't know. It's where people are really hoping for a fresh coat of paint, basically.
And I don't know if you any of you US people, North American people out there, there's a phrase that we sometimes hear in the UK. It's a rest is as good as a change, but I'm going to flip that around and say I think sometimes a change is as good as a rest. So I think changing some things might be as good as potentially going for that big, huge overhaul that we're expecting. Just slight things altered over time make a big difference to Android.
I agree.
And I've absolutely probably got that phrase completely out of context, but I think that's kind of what I want to see. And I know we've seen some like leaks of that and work being put in place, but hopefully some of them come to fruition, because I do think that these people do care about the user interface experience on Android. And like you say, I don't think it's stagnated. I just think it hasn't changed, which is Sometimes it's absolutely fine. Like, I'm not going to open a Google Sheet and expect a brand new UI every time, because that would be silly. But I think from a smartphone perspective, you have a brand new device, and the form factors do alter slightly. I'd like to see them change, especially because we've seen Android 15 from a lot of the other OEMs out there make some quite big, drastic UI changes. So, yeah, that's... we'll cover Android 16 in depth here at 9to5 Google. That's just our bread and butter. But in terms of the hardware, let's talk a little bit about hardware, because we have some pretty much nailed on things that are going to happen, and then we'll get on some things that are a little bit out there. I guess the Pixel 9a is first in kind of the headlights. What are you expecting for the 9a? Because I don't think we've talked about this as much as we probably could have done.
It's a cheaper Pixel 9. I don't know. It's interesting because the Pixel 9 already feels like the cheap one. I mean, the hardware is premium. I'll give them that. But in terms of the hardware is premium, I think a switch to materials is honestly the biggest noticeable change that we can expect. And I don't mind having a plastic. I do like the Pixel 8a. That was a good distillation of the Pixel 8, which had an excellent compact metal and glass, and the transition to plastic was fine. And I think that Google will also do well with it. So I guess the question people have is how the camera bar works, or the lack of a camera bar, rather.
I have, and I'm 100%. I know that I'm not the first person to probably say this out loud, but I'm getting the iPhone 4 vibes from this, and I'm getting it in a good way. And the initial, I know there's some initial leaked hands-on images of the device, and I mean, test devices, you can never really get a true kind of, I guess, they're not the taste makers, aren't they? They don't do anything else. But that looked terrible. But the renders that are a little bit, I guess they're a little bit more polished. They're technically not quite as precise, potentially. I think they look really good. I do genuinely think they look really good. And I hope that if Google goes down we are making like something that is akin to the iPhone 4, I will lap it up. I'm interested to see what happens with regards to the camera system, because, like you say, the camera bar is. Would we call it iconic? Do you think we would call it iconic? But do you think everyone in the public would call it iconic? I'm not so sure.
Maybe signature or
signature sounds good, right?
For the Pixel.
Yeah, calling card. It's like that calling card.
Calling
of the
card
Pixel.
is good.
Yeah, and I think some of the proposed changes make it look like I would say a pretty substantial upgrade over the 8A.
Yeah. Any design shift is always that.
Yeah, I mean, the price differential between the 9 and the 9A now makes more sense. I think last year the 8A encroached a little bit too much on the Pixel 8. So in terms of like potential pricing at that $499 level, or £500 here in the UK, and maybe 499 euros, I think that seems pretty good.
It's good. There's a necessity in what you need to make the hardware level you need to have on a Pixel to be a Pixel. But honestly, the abandoning like the 349 of like the Pixel 4a of years old, Google should kind of get back to that. Honestly, they should.
I would love that. Yeah,
make a truly affordable phone. 349. In that area, even if it gives up some of the AI on-device AI stuff, I really do think they should pursue a true A series phone. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think maybe we've kind of expected them to increase the quality of them, and it does make sense. And I mean, anecdotally, I see more 7As than I see 8As out and about. So I don't know. Read into that what you will. I know a lot of people have the 7A where I live, but I'm interested to see what happens with the 9A series. I know it's going to be close to the Pixel 10 potentially if we have that new August launch schedule. And this is, I mean, do you think we'll see this before I/O like we did last year with the 8A?
I/O.
Yeah,
the 8A launched so weirdly in that it was like a week before. It has to happen earlier.
I hope so. I hope we see. I feel like this would be the perfect, like, I don't know, end of maybe MWC. If Google said, do you know what, we will shove it forward to MWC, there's probably not as many product launches. I think that could work.
That'd put the phone back in MWC.
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah, we will be on top of 9A content. I know it's not necessarily as flashy as the Pixel 10 series, which is the other product that we're expecting later this year in terms of the phones. We'll get the phones out of the way first, and then other these supplementary Pixel products. But Pixel 10 series, I guess we're just hoping for more of the same.
More of the same. It's refined hardware. Again, the Pixel 9 was the first gen of that new design. So if you remember how it went from the Pixel 6 to the Pixel 7, it'll absolutely get more refined. But I think it's the same general shape, more so than, again, with the Pixel 6 to the Pixel 7. I think where these rails are here to stay. And I'd love if build quality felt better.
Do you have a little bit of nitpick? I'm going to jump on this because do you have a nitpick with the build quality? You need to share it with us now, Abner.
The button tolerances could be better. I have some wiggle with the locker.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. I agree with that one.
I think the power button could be bigger, especially if it's for Gemini. I'm in the minority here, but I think it's kind of thick. I think it could be like a millimeter thinner. I know that the battery, people prioritize the battery, and I'm fine with how thick, with the shape, with the thickness or thinness. It's fine, but I don't know. I feel like making it a hair thinner would feel a bit more modern.
Maybe, yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of those. And I'll call them nitpicks because I would nitpick the same. I think the big thing for most people, and we're still kind of intrigued to see what happens with it based upon the previous, slightly old and out of date roadmap for the chipset, is how is the switch from Samsung Foundry to TMC going to make a big difference to the Tensor lineup? Is this going to be I'm going to say it now. I don't think it's going to be the quantum leap that maybe a lot of people are expecting or hoping for. But at the same time, and I think I said it in a previous pod, that when we look at the history of chip makers, I think Qualcomm struggled to make a flagship level chip within the same time frame that Google has made a Tensor processor.
Ooh,
I know that they've had a lot of there's been a lot of partnerships with Samsung to help kind of get Tensor to where it is. But I think if you look at the first 4 generations of the Qualcomm's Snapdragon lineup, they were pretty bang average, pretty terrible for a few years. And they had a lot of missteps in the time in between. So maybe if we put it into that context, this Tensor G5 could, as long as it's solid, as long as it obviously the performance gains, definitely need performance gains. But for me, I think the biggest thing is Google just needs to get away from UFS 3.1 storage. We need UFS 4.0 storage for a phone that is potentially going to be updated for 7 years, because you will notice those slowdowns. But I don't think we have much to say on the 10 series, really. Seems a little bit early, but hey, we're 9 months away potentially from them hitting store shelves, which seems insane to say. 7? No, but August. Was it not the end of it? Was it not the end of August by the time they actually physically buy them?
Mid-August. Stuff was already coming out.
God. Well, I'm getting my timeframes mixed up because I'm all out of sync. But yeah, that Pixel 10, Pixel 9a, hey, they're par for the course. We'll talk about them in depth as time goes on. What I'm excited for potentially, though, is, as we're staying with Pixel slightly, is do you think we'll finally get an A series Pixel Buds follow-up? Because this is something I've wanted for so long now.
Yeah, I think they do need to go. They're still advertising the Pixel Series A pretty hard next to the Pixel Buds Pro 2, which I think is humorous, since there is absolutely room for cheaper headphones. That needs to happen. I don't think a mid-tier is really possible at this point in terms of differentiation. So they should just go cheap with no ANC.
You don't think they should? My thought process was, why not just take if there's tons and tons of Pixel Buds Pro first gen lying around, you could potentially use the parts bin and shove that into an A series device, save a bit of money.
To me, they should have kept just the Pixel Buds Pro around. I think the physical design is so much up to people's personal preference. That would have made sense to keep selling the original and get rid of the A. Keep the Pro at a cheaper price point, get rid of the A, since that is such old technology, right? Well, it's not old, it's just basic. There's nothing special about it hardware-wise.
Yeah, I mean, the only upside is you can pick them up for next to nothing now, but that's one thing I would really like to see more of. Just these ancillary accessories, just get them refreshed, get these things up to date. I mean, I guess I don't really have much to say about Pixel Watch 4 while we're on the Pixel line. I don't think we're going to get huge quantum leaps. I know there's, we got some rumors of a tensor processor for the particular watch, but
I think it'd be weird if they stuck with the same chip for another generation.
Mm-hmm.
I probably think we have one more Qualcomm chip. If Qualcomm releases a new chip this year, which they really should at this point, they're kind of overdue. I think that would be good. That would be great for this Pixel Watch 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm curious to see what more performance means for on-device AI stuff, for processing, for that kind of thing. It's maybe actual on-device processing will speed up commands in a significant way. It doesn't really feel like it right now. Design-wise,
surely they'll stick to the same thing. I can't imagine them just ditching this Pebble-like design. It looks nice.
The Pebble stays, but I think where they would play around with things is with the buttons, maybe. Crown, maybe it's a virtual dial like the base series of the Galaxy watches. I don't know. I think that's where they have to play with more so than they're changing the design. The case design, the Pebble. I think I kind of want to see if they have any interesting ideas for buttons. I don't know, solid state would be interesting to me. Getting rid of a failure point. But I think if they do like a next gen Pixel Watch, is more so they release another model, another variant. Either they do.
I was about
to
ask, do you think we'll get like an Ultra? Yeah, do you think we'll get an Ultra
model with multi-day battery? I mean, the 45 already has multi-day battery life. I don't know, a more rugged case, but I kind of think doing an active watch should be a bit more interesting in terms of switching from metal to plastic, a plastic case, or just something really lightweight for running, something like you barely feel on your hand. That'd be an interesting like marketing point. I don't know what else they do there.
To interject there, do you think that stays, that fits better into the Fitbit line as opposed to the Pixel Watch lineup?
Well, then never making another Fitbit OS smartwatch. So that's out the window. I'm sure they have to keep making trackers. It's so cheap. Or they make an A series Pixel Watch wherein it starts something again. This past the case, maybe to go a flat screen instead of the Pebble we have today. Maybe that's cheaper. Basically, something so cheap that the trackers stop making sense. Where the only reason you'd buy a tracker is for like battery life, it gets into 5-10 day category. But I think where Google would play with the Pixel Watch is a new variant rather than updating the core lineup, because the design is really good and I think they should really just stick with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if they were going to do anything, they should potentially do one slight, like maybe add like you say, that third option that is either ultra premium or slightly bigger and has like a rugged design, a little bit like the Galaxy Watch Pro series. But yeah, there's not really a great deal else to say about the Pixel series. There's kind of some consistence that we're going to have. Those last two, with regards to the A series, probably going to be something that is it may be in the pipeline, but we really don't know at this stage. But I think one thing that I'm really excited to see is, and the development in general, is about how Android TV and Google TV develops. Do you think we'll finally get this? We've had this Google TV streamer switch. Chromecast is dead. Well, maybe by name. And obviously those products are now being shifted in inventory and we're slowly going out of stock across the globe. Do you think that... I don't think personally the future is the Google TV streamer at $99, I think Google has room in the lineup for an entry-level dongle potentially, or something slightly like the TV streamer. Do you think we're going to do? Do you think they'll do that this year, or do you think that's something for next year?
2 years is the gap last time. I guess the question is, on discount, how cheap is Google TV Streamer? If when it starts getting its discounts, is it $20 off? Is it something more drastic than that? Like, I don't know, let's say a $69 TV streamer, I kind of think it obviates the need for anything cheaper down the line, but a cheaper model.
Possibly, but I think some people might be put off by the form factor. I think that the dongle approach is clearly working for the Amazon Fire TV Stick.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Google is said, well, okay, we'll just seed ground to the Fire TV Stick at the low end, let them kind of take the reins of that. And I mean, I'm interested to see, do we, like, in future, most people will have a 4K television. I still think it's 1080p mostly that most people watch on. And I'm kind of plucking a figure out of thin air there, but into my mind. I imagine that is the case. But I do wonder if there is room for another 1080p streaming dongle. Google probably might say, well, we'll just use our existing 1080p Chromecast inventory and just fire through that, and then that covers
I think that's
grounds.
Done by this year. I think
Do you think they're gone by this year?
I think that's gone by this year. I don't know.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It feels tough, right?
Yeah.
Because this is something that you don't buy every year, isn't it?
No.
You don't buy a TV streamer or a TV dongle every year. But I just wonder if my thought process is that you've ditched the Chromecast, you've ditched the low-end pricing model, you've gone for something that's, I guess, is middle of the road in the TV streaming market. But there are some problems with the TV streamer, I think, that people have with it. It's not necessarily the most powerful, and Google have just put it at that $99 price point. I agree with you that if Google had sold it initially, this is before we'd had discounts, if they sold it initially at maybe $70, or just said, you know what, we'll go for broke and put it at $59.
Yeah,
I think it with discounts, you probably wouldn't buy anything else. I'm surprised. I do wonder if they'll just, like you say, maybe just lower the price slowly over time. That might make more sense than bringing out a new model. But I would have loved to have seen a new Chromecast. I would have loved to have seen a new Chromecast, because they're the kind of thing that they're so cheap. They're just ubiquitous. You see a Chromecast in nearly every home. They were giving them away for free. Like, it's just a shame that it may not exist now, and it's their first piece of hardware. So I think I have a little bit of a sentimental attachment to the Chromecast that most people probably don't have. But yeah, I don't know. Could we see one? I'm going to say...
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a next year thing, honestly.
Yeah, same.
And containing on the hardware front, we are absolutely overdue for new speakers and displays. So let's start with displays, actually. So the Pixel tablet was supposed to be the new display, basically. And with the rumors of no more Pixel tablet, I kind of wonder whether that increases the likelihood of displays. So the difference was always that the displays would always be so much cheaper than the Pixel tablet.
How do you think that fits into the line? Like, because obviously Gemini is now going to be integrated and bleed into more areas. Do you genuinely think that? My thought process is that Google now needs a vector for Gemini in your homes and the hardware to run the AI, even maybe basic AI models locally. Like, surely you can't have every Nest Hub suddenly flicks over to Gemini in a couple of years' time, and it doesn't have the processing power to handle it, right? So
no, it would. Again, that's why another reason that Pixel tablet made sense, because it was Android. I don't think Google wants to bring any of this stuff onto another new platform, basically. So that's why the Pixel tablet and its Android foundation made so much sense in that regard. But I think I still use my Nest Hub Max every day. It's the biggest screen. I wouldn't go back to a Nest Hub for it. 10 versus 7-inch screen. So I do think we're due for refreshed hardware. The bezels need to go, absolutely. But yeah, it's the tablet not working, not panning out for Google. Really, they shot the bed, whatever the shit the bed.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't need to correct you. I think you know what the phrase is. Yeah, I think I have one on my desk. I'm looking at the Pixel tablet right now, and the idea that they were making it as, I mean, you can clearly see that they tried to make it to replace the Nest Hub lineup, and you can tell from the bezels, from the dock, from just the way that it interacts. I mean, it's basically just a big Pixel phone on a Pixel stand, so which is in and of itself a problem, I think. And I think it was just a tough sell. The pricing was such a tough sell. Android tablets in general are just seen as cheap.
It really
crap
did not justify. Yeah, it's. Again, maybe like we were talking with the Google TV streamer. If they can drop the price, the longer they make it, the cheaper it becomes for them to make. Mm-hmm. So if they keep dropping the price. Yeah.
But how do they handle the update scenario for that? Because I know that obviously, I'm going to ask a silly question now because I should probably know this.
They never said 7 years.
They never said 7 years, but at the same time,
I think the
most recent
5.
public is 3. I think the most recent public information
3 and
OS updates is 3.
And they didn't include it into the 5 years, into the 5-year promise for that series of tensors. So that is a good point. The Nest Hubs and
they keep getting updated,
on Fuchsia
right?
now.
They're on Fuchsia now, so that's easier to update, isn't it, for them to do that? Because it's the only OS that runs on those particular devices. I mean, we're probably asking deep questions that Google is trying to kind of come to terms with themselves. Mm. But I think, yeah, it was like you said, I think shit the bed is the best way to describe it. Apologies there for anyone who's offended by swear words, but I think, doing that with the Pixel tablet kind of, it's almost marred any potential follow-up because you're like, okay, we tried this form factor didn't work. We wanted a dual form factors thing. And initially when Nest Hub came out, I remember people saying, why wouldn't you just get a tablet? So we've tried, Google have tried it. People clearly didn't want it. And now I'm guessing internally that, well, is there any point in this? I don't know.
The Pixel tablet we have today, it's the price. Is there a price where it would have made sense, basically? That people would have excused the middling hardware.
$250. I think $250. If there's a $250, dock? I think people with a dock. You have to throw a dock in it. You have to just give away a dock. They have to make it a loss leader if they want it in homes and expect people to spend money on the Play Store or with other services or like I don't know. I think a lot of the problems with the Pixel tablet stem from the fact that the Nest Hub was like under $100. Was it 59? I think it was £59 in the UK, the first one. So you made a product that was under $60 that has effectively my Pixel tablet and my Nest Hub when the dock do the same thing. Why the hell would I buy a Pixel tablet? So they made a rod for their own back is another phrase I would have said. It's difficult for them to then change direction and say, okay, now the Nest Hub is £500 or $500. Like, you can't do that. I just think it was such a confusing switch. It made sense for people who wanted an Android tablet, but who's paying $450? And let's just say the dock costs $50. It doesn't.
Yeah, the dock
I had to buy mine separately.
$129.
I had to pay. Yeah, I had to pay it unfortunately because I bought the tablet separate. So I had the tablet review unit sent to me separately, and then I had to buy the dock separately to use it correctly. So hey, it is what it is. But I think that separate kind of dockable, undockable thing, I don't think it works. We need a cheaper Nest speaker.
Yeah, to round things out, it's a Nest speaker. It's, I don't know, Gemini Live, there's, I don't know, there's a charming aspect to talking with it, and there's always been a charming aspect to speakers that are this basic. Honestly, the Nest Mini design itself, just keep that. It's pretty iconic at this point, 2 generations in. So probably keep that. I don't know if a Nest Audio makes sense, a follow-up to Nest Audio makes sense for them. It was always
I still need to pick one up. I don't know. Do you have one?
I don't have a Nest Audio.
I need to pick one up. I've heard the audio's pretty good on them. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a strange one. I feel like they were of their time. They were of their time.
Yeah.
I think, again, another one of those things, put it on fire sale. I mean, to be honest, the price has increased over the past few years. Yeah. So to about $100 RRP, I think that you can sometimes get them. I remember passing up on 2 for £50 here in the UK, and I regret that decision because it would have been nice to have 2 nice speakers. But I think they're definitely of their time. Was it 2020 when the Pixel 5 launched? They launched, wasn't it? And then we had the follow-up Nest Hub in 2021. So yeah, I think 4 years for the display, 5 years for a speaker. I think ditch the speaker, just go down the display route. If if Apple
keep the Nest Mini, absolutely keep the cheapest $50 to $29. They have to keep something that cheap, I think. But agreed, everything else should be display and up.
Yeah, I mean, you could merge the Nest Audio's audio prowess with a display, and I think a lot of people would be pretty happy. But yeah, Nest is one of those ones that it's a confusing lineup because it doesn't get updated as often, but at the same time, people kind of expect Google to update them every couple of years, maybe. And I don't know, maybe people have a point. I do agree that we probably do need a new display, especially one that might even be 1080p, which would be very nice. But yeah, let's get into the realms of silly territory, of potentially things that we don't expect to happen, but we hope to launch. And I'm going to start with, and I don't think this is ever going to happen now, a first-party Google tracker, because I don't know about you, I do not use any of the Android trackers with the Find My Device network now that they've been made available. I haven't tried one that has really blown me away at this stage.
It's, I don't know, the Moto one looks good. That's honestly fine. To me, the privacy implications, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's changed and that people are acceptable with the quote-unquote risk, that there are enough protections in place and all that for Google to release one, but there'll always be these bad local news stories about about people being tracked by a Google tracker. So I am so sure they have one fully ready, sitting around in the lab that they could produce anytime they wanted. Honestly, that's basically a given to me at this point. It just comes down to the optics of it, and I guess whether the ecosystem, this third-party ecosystem they've made, whether that's enough for Google, whether that's enough for Android, really. That is the question.
I guess that's one of the strengths and weaknesses of Android in a nutshell, isn't it? We have this almost... cottage industry is not the way to describe it, is it? But it's more like we have these third-party manufacturers bolstering a product developed by Google. But yeah...
honestly, it's like Samsung. If Samsung switches to Find My Device, Google, there's no reason for a Pixel tracker. If they get Samsung on board, that's just... we'll just say buy the Samsung. Everybody will just say that. Just buy the Samsung one.
True. I think that kind of... There's some other things we have in that we're potentially going to see, but I think they're so far down the line. Mine would have been another Pixel Book and maybe some first-party Google Android XR hardware. But again, these are things that are so... almost not in the realms of possibility at this point in time. But yeah, if you have any of your own, by all means, contact us either on social media, whatever it needs to be, what you want to see Google release this year. But yeah, I mentioned at the start of the podcast that we have an opportunity to potentially win a Pixel 9, but let's just have a little word from our sponsor, Yabba, for this week's podcast. They are one of the biggest Android TV and projector makers on the planet. They debuted a brand new series of projectors at CES 2025, including a couple that I actually had the opportunity of testing. The latest is the K300S, which is one of the company's first short throw laser projectors. It's capable of producing a 100-inch display from just 9 inches, so you can put it basically anywhere in your home. It's got all of the key features of any good projector, including things like dual JBL tuned speakers, so you get that booming sound, supports Dolby audio. You've got all those smart TV features with Netflix, Prime Video, all of your favorite streaming applications. And they don't just cater for the high-end market, they cater for all kinds of budgets with devices like the L2 Plus 1080p, which I have been able to test myself here. And that, again, also has JBL stereo sound, really nice bright screen at 700 lumens. It's got autofocus, keystone correction, all of the key features you need from a decent, budget-friendly projector. But my favorite is the T2 series. This is a portable projector, 1080p, has a built-in battery that lasts up to around about 2.5 hours of usage for streaming all of your favorite applications. And it comes with, if you buy the T2 Plus, it comes with an Android TV dongle, which allows you to access basically everything that you could dream of on an Android TV system. If you want to know more about Yabba, then definitely go check out the link via the description below. And we have the opportunity, if you want to basically enter, you can basically we're giving away, a Pixel 9 to One Lucky Reader. Hit the show notes below to find out how to enter and visit the site as well for more information. But yeah, just want to say thanks to Yabba for sponsoring this episode of Pixelated. And again, Abner, thanks for joining me. This has been another wonderful deep dive into what we want to see from Google later this year. I guess, let's just roll on. Yeah. Thank you for listening to episode 37 of Pixelated, and I'll speak to you soon.
See you all next week. Bye.